All right, we're live. Mike and the Entertainah. The Giants have a Week 17 meaningful game. All we could ask for. I bet we're happy about it. Everyone's happy about it. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on the channel. Always love doing this with you. Hello to everybody in the chat. What's going on, Max? What's going on, Nick? Thank you to everybody for being here. Lucas is in the chat. What's going on, my man? But Mike, Giants, of course, coming off 3 straight losses. It's not even the method in which we lost. It's not even the fact that we lost. It's the method in which we've lost the last 3 weeks. That's kind of been, I guess, upsetting, depressing if you're a New York Giants fan. Based off of all the growth that we really had over those 4 weeks, it was the method in which we were winning. We were winning up at the point of attack. We were controlling the line of scrimmage. The defense looked really good, especially after the Seattle game. And it just feels like we've hit a speed bump with this defense. And I don't know if it's because we've gotten tired from carrying the offense all year, or maybe obviously just because the increased level in play. I mean, you've played 3 playoff teams the last 3 weeks with Arizona, Cleveland, and now Baltimore. But last week was really discouraging. But obviously, the Giants benefited. They got really lucky that 2 games went their way. Philadelphia ended up losing, and then obviously Washington ended up losing in a game that a lot of people probably thought they were going to win against Carolina. And now the Giants have been afforded the opportunity to play essentially a playoff game for the right to have an opportunity on Sunday night to go to the playoffs if things bounce their way. And I was saying before we went live, I think it's incredibly beneficial for Daniel Jones to be afforded that opportunity. The same for Joe Judge, but I feel like this is when head coaches and quarterbacks grow. Whether you win, lose, or tie, just to be put in that situation, I think it is important for the growth of our young quarterback.
Yeah, and the growth is important because Daniel Jones, Joe Judge are 2 guys that I think most people expect to be here next year. So if you can get that learning experience and opportunity, I feel like you got to take it. That kind of leads me to my question that I feel like most people are going to want to know. What do you have to say about people that want to lose this game on purpose, that want to get the better draft pick? I know my answer. I think I know your answer. We both want to win this game, of course. But what would be your response to people that say, I want to lose this game to get possibly the 5th or the 6th pick and which would possibly happen if they lost this game?
I felt bad. I never like to be the guy that, and came at me on Twitter and he called me, he literally said, "You're a moron because you want to make the playoffs." And I took offense to that. I'm like, you're going to call me a moron because I want my team to make the playoffs? And I went over the top and I said, if you don't want your team to win and kick Dallas out of the playoffs in the city, it's not even just us. You're kicking Dallas out of the playoffs. Take your Giant jersey off. That's basically what I said. But I never like to tell fans how to root for their team. I understand it. I understand the mindset. Like, if we lose and everything bounces our way, we could potentially be picking 3rd, even though that's probably not going to be the case. We'll probably be picking maybe 6th if we do lose this game. And if we win, if things go our way, we could be picking as late as 19. So I understand where people are coming from. But I'm going to go to what Justin said. First off, I'm a fan. I'm always going to root for my team to win, especially when things are on the line. Like, I understand last year against Washington when we were completely out of it. I understand where people were coming from when they were like, you can't do anything. Lose and try to get Chase Young. In this situation, players are on the line. I'm pulling for my team to win, Mike, 1,000%. And I think it's important for the growth of this football team. So we'll see what happens. But I'm looking at it like a win-win. If we end up losing and we play a tough game, then in the back of my head, I'll be like, all right, at least, we got a higher draft pick. But right. I thought Justin brought up a really good point on Twitter from Talking Giants yesterday. We're more than likely not going to be drafting a quarterback. And I'm sure we'll get questions about that throughout the stream. And if we're taking a wide receiver, you look at last year's draft class. I mean, you got guys like Justin Jefferson, who's probably the best receiver in the class right now. He went at the back end of the 1st round. So the way I
Claypool from 2nd round.
Yeah, and I know it's a really strong wide receiver draft class to begin with. If we were taking a quarterback, I'd understand it even more. But I mean, listen, when the playoffs are on the line, Mike, I'm all in. I want my team to win a football game.
Yeah, I personally don't know how you can root against them this week. And I was one of those people that was outspoken last year in week 16 about I'd rather lose this game because Chase Young is this, I know we use this term all the time, generational pass rusher. And then, I got in arguments on Twitter about it recently as well. I'm like, the person was like, well, if you don't take Andrew Thomas, you have a hole at left tackle. Well, my response was we still don't have a pass rush. So like Chase Young also would have been a nice, guy to fill in right there, who right now is the better player than Andrew Thomas. A lot of time left to fix their careers. And I still have a lot of faith in Andrew Thomas to be a franchise left tackle down the line. But when you have a chance to make the playoffs, which is what the Giants are in right now, I know it's due to the division not being great and all that. But when you have that chance, I feel like you have to root for them to win. Like, I don't know why you'd root otherwise. I see where people are coming from, but it's not like there's this generational can't miss prospect at 5 or 6 overall. Some people have those like Zach Wilson dreams at quarterback. I don't think the Giants are taking a quarterback personally, so it's not something to worry about. People, myself included so far, love Devontae Smith, like a certain wide receiver in this draft, a Waddle, the guy from LSU, I forget his name now. What's his name, Chris? Jamar Chase.
Jamar
yeah,
Chase.
Jamar Chase.
But the thing is, you might love these guys. It could completely change. You look at DK Metcalf. He was supposed to go like 8th overall. He ended up going in the 3rd round. So you don't know how these mocks are going to play out during the combine and everything else. And at this point, I'm in the moment. It's not a Chase Young situation. That does not exist. And we don't know where we're going to be. Just go out there. If I, as a fan, my advice, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to root my ass off that the team wins. Playoffs are on the line. And even if we don't make the playoffs, you kick Dallas out of it, who I can't stand. So that's my mindset going into the game. And obviously you want to see growth from Daniel Jones.
Definitely, yeah. So this is my first ever donation from a guy we both know, OGR Sports, awesome guy. Kind of looks like Dave Gettleman now. I should think, like, I know he shaved his head. He has like
he does look a little bit like Dave Gettleman. See, that's why you don't watch his channel, probably.
I don't know if that's like a bad thing or not.
I'm messing with you.
No, I'm kidding. But thank you. So what's good, guys? Always interested to hear what Mike has to say. Hey, sometimes it's not good, but thank you. Cheers. And Brilly. What's Brilly mean? I don't even know what that means. Do you know what that means?
That's what Bad Dog says, because Jason Garrett's wife, I think his name is Brill. So he says Brilly instead of Dilly. But OGR's got a great channel. He's a great guy. I love Jeff. Does a great job over there. I've had him on the channel before, and you just made history. The first donation ever on Mike Too Nice's channel was from OGR Sports, one content creator to another.
Yeah, Chris has been on my ass for a while to get the donations set up, so I was like, all right, I'll do it. Anyway, from Simon, was watching Fireside's film, another channel. I used to be over there. Garrett's scheme is a joke. I think we know this, and I went back and watched some of the film. We saw more curl plays. Sometimes they got open. There was that one where there was a player error where Austin Mack dropped a 3rd and 4 that was right in his chest, and that was on a curl route. There were some plays that were other curl routes, and Daniel Jones on that one play to Dante Pettis extended the play and got that throw to the left side, which I was a big fan of. So a lot of yes, Jason Garrett. I mean, the one thing about Garrett as well has kind of annoyed me recently. When we came into the year, we've looked at Garrett's numbers in the past with the Cowboys and noticed that he likes to run the ball. I feel like the Giants in recent weeks have gotten away from that. Like, I know that they got off to a 0-10 deficit or 0-14 deficit against the Ravens, and even the Cardinals game, Deion Lewis fumbles early in his own territory. You kind of get down, but the Giants kind of abandoned the run game early. It's giving me like Pat Shurmur flashbacks, and I know that Saquon Barkley's not here anymore, but you had Wayne Gallman and even Alfred Morris sometimes running the ball effectively, but even now they're still getting away from the run game. I know the game script is not perfect, but you're not down by 28 points. You're down by 2 possessions. Like, I think they should probably stick with the run game, especially against a team like Dallas, who really doesn't stop the run very well. They might be the worst team in the league at stopping the run. So I hope they stick with it for week 17.
Yeah, this I even said it on Twitter. Normally, I am all aboard the run train. I want to run, and I definitely have that mindset this week. Last week, I understood opening it up more, not to the extent that they did, and I think it had to do with the fact that they were down by as much as they were. But I did want them to throw it more last week for the simple reason is nobody does that better than Baltimore. And you're not going to beat Baltimore at what they're best at, which is ball control, running the football. So I knew that if the Giants had any opportunity to win that game, they were going to have to throw the football a little bit more than they normally do. They did it too much. I think they only had like 12 carries throughout the entire game. And the Giants ain't winning football games like that. They're just not. We don't have the team equipped to do that. We hope that eventually, maybe next year, you get Barkley back, you had some great wide receivers. Maybe you become a team that could throw the football 35, 40 times and win games. But we just don't have that team. It has very little to do with Jones. It has to do with the surrounding talent around him that we can't open up this offense. So I completely agree with you this week. And, yeah, I mean, we're not winning games if we run the ball 12 times. We're just not. There's very few teams in the NFL that are going to. And like you said, it had a lot to do with the fact that we fell behind as much as we did.
Yeah, like a team like the Chiefs kind of abandons the run game sometimes, but when you have those type of weapons and the best quarterback in football, you're allowed to do that. The Giants, unfortunately, are not in that situation, so you'd rather have a balanced attack, but so far it has not been the case. From Max here, percent chance we go to the playoffs, percent chance Gettleman is back. Chris, I'll let you start with that one.
Okay, percent chance go to the playoffs. All right, so I'm going to say Washington's 50% because I think it's a 50-50 game. I really do. I do think the Eagles have a legitimate chance to win that game. A lot of people say they're going to check out, but I look at it like their head coach probably doesn't even know if he's coming back. Their quarterback's still trying to prove whether or not he's a franchise quarterback. You got guys on that team playing for jobs, and it's a rivalry game. You want to kick out Washington if you get the opportunity. So I think it's a 50-50 game. The way the Eagles have been playing as of late, even though I know they didn't look good against the Cowboys this week, Hurts has actually looked pretty good. So I'm going to give Washington a 50% chance, and then that leaves 50% between the Giants and the Cowboys. And I'm going to go 30% Dallas, 20% Giants. I am going to favor Dallas in this game, but I don't think it's a game we can't win. So I'll give us about a 20, maybe 25% chance to make the playoffs. As far as Gettleman's back, here's what I'm going to say, and maybe I'll be wrong, and we're going to know in about 5 days, Mike. I think I am definitely leaning that either Gettleman will be back or they're going to hire in-house. And the main reason for that is the Logan Ryan signing. They signed him 9 days before the end of the season, Mike. And let me ask you, pretend you're a GM right now. Pretend you're Caserio. If you were Caserio, would you want them to spend 20% of your potential cap space on Logan Ryan before you had the ability to make that decision for the football team? So unless they already have something worked out and they know that Caserio is coming here, which is possible, I won't rule it out, that tells me, Mike, that they're sticking with Gettleman or they're hiring in-house.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a legitimate thought. I mean, there is the other side of it that maybe, Logan Ryan was a guy with Joe Judge in New England. Maybe they have that special connection and maybe Joe Judge wants him here in the future. So there is that to it. But yeah, at the same time, when, as you said, 9 days before the season ends or whatever, you see a signing like that happen. And I'm happy about that contract. He deserves it. When you see that happen, it's like, okay, like maybe they're not planning on making a move here. I don't really know. I mean, that's as you said, we'll find out in 5 days or so, which is the good thing. With the suspense won't be there too much longer. To answer the question, I think percent of we make the playoffs. I think the Giants, I would give them like a 35 to 40% chance of beating Dallas this week. And I think I'm around you, like a 50-50 with Philly and Washington. A lot of it depends if it's Taylor Heineke or if it's Alex Smith. That's like a big thing, of course. But assuming Alex Smith is healthy and the way that Jalen Hurts is playing, I feel like you got to make it like a 50-50. So, I mean, overall, maybe the Giants have a 40% chance of making it. I mean, 35-40, I think. So it's possible. I mean, that's kind of like the thing that matters the most. We're not playing the Ravens in week 17. Like, at least we have a chance here. I know the Cowboys have been a lot better recently. They've found themselves. They're getting a lot better. Andy Dalton's playing better. But at the same time, they're not this unbeatable force. We can definitely beat Dallas if we play a good game for 4 quarters. But as you mentioned before, problem is the past 3 games, we have not played like a good football team. So that has to change. The Giants cannot play any way they did the past 3 weeks and expect to win in week 17. So things have to get better, but I do think they can, which is the bright side to it. So I will say that. Forget them. I almost forgot this part. I don't know. I really have no idea at this point. Like you hear different stuff every day. Like honestly, you see a report.
I'm with you.
Giants are going to move on.
I just want to fast forward and find out. I just want to fast forward.
Yeah, right. I'm going to stick with my thought process. If Joe Judge, who I trust to get this franchise in the right direction, if Joe Judge wants him back, then bring him back. Will I be happy about it? No, but it's not my decision and it's whatever, But I feel like as long as they can get more draft picks right, get more off seasons to go correctly like 2020's was, eventually things will start getting better. So like that's the positive of it. I don't care if it's Gettleman, I don't care if it's Judge, I don't care if it's Nick Caserio. Just get it right. That's really all that matters. I mean, people know why I have my problems with Gettleman. A lot of bad stuff before Joe Judge came in, but if he keeps doing what he did in 2020, then stay all you want.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Do you agree with me though? At least are you leaning where if Gettleman? I think it's very possible Gettleman steps down. He's older. Maybe he gets a reduced role. People have talked about that. But if they move on from Gettleman, do you agree with me that it's probably going to be an in-house hire at this point?
I honestly don't like. Who would they hire? Abrams or just promote him?
I think it'd be Abrams, and I think Judge would maybe be more of the personnel decisions. Like he'd have more say than he does. So he'd almost be the de facto GM, Judge, and Abrams would be the dollars and cents guys. That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, and people have asked me about Judge being the GM in the past, and it's a legit question because people have speculations that Judge had a lot of influence this past offseason. So, I mean, at 38 years old as a first-year head coach, I feel like that's a lot of pressure to put on a guy. But if he wants it, then I can't say no to that because, as I just said, I trust him to change the franchise around. But at the same time, I do have my concerns because there's a lot on your plate. Like, you can't do in-season college prospect evaluations because you're focused on winning games for your NFL team. Like, that's a lot to put on your plate. So if they have really good scouts and if Joe Judge is the right guy to make the final call, maybe that's a recipe for success. I personally feel it's a lot for one guy to do. I would not be happy about Kevin Abrams being promoted, but I guess it would be like the most Giants thing to do, so I'm kind of used to it. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a concern of mine. But if it happens, I just want it to work. I mean, I don't care what the process is.
I'm with you. I don't care who the GM is. I don't care who the coach is. Win football games. Keep this team going in the right direction.
Right. My problem is always the people that, and you have valid points, but there's people that defend Gettleman on stuff that I feel like should not even be defended at this point, which is the annoying part. Next from Lucas, with donations come the real tough questions. Thank you, by the way. Do the Giants get punished because we have the most handsomest fans in the world sports? I don't know about that. I mean, maybe Chris. I don't know about me.
No, Mike's a good-looking guy, man. Mike's a good-looking guy. Lucas, what's going on, man? Lucas is from Australia. He's awesome.
Oh, really?
What's going on, Lucas, man?
Thank you, Lucas.
But I think we do have the most handsome fans, and I think Mike's leading the pack.
It's debatable. Anyway, I'll take that, though. Thank you. From Jeremy, thank you as well. Hey, Cowboys fan here. Maybe the best team with no trash talking, but here, I honestly can't read, Chris. I suck. Hey, Cowboys fan here. May the best team win. No trash talking here. I know we suck, but it's kind of fun. Yeah, look, I'm not saying the Giants are good either. I really cannot say that. When your best potential record is 6-10, I'm not going to sit here all high and mighty and go, my Giants are a top 5 team in football. Let's be honest. We benefited from a historically bad division. Like, I think we all know that. You can talk yourself into the Giants being this really good team, but I kind of look at it from a realist perspective of like, okay, we got really lucky here, but there still has to be a division winner. A team has to have a playoff game, and why not us? I feel like the Giants, honestly, of Washington, the Cowboys, and us, I feel like the Giants might have the best chance to upset a team like the Buccaneers. Like, I feel like we have a good recipe for it. You could argue Washington because they have beat them. Line.
We should have beat them the first
time. That's another thing as well. I mean, we definitely had that game won against the Buccaneers. I mean, that was when Daniel Jones was playing terrible. If Daniel Jones plays the way that he is now against Tampa, we would have won that game. So that's definitely a positive outlook for it. But yeah, I mean, look, it's fine. You can trash talk. I'll take it. It is what it is. But it should be a fun game, though. I will say that. I don't expect a blowout in either direction. I think it will be a fun game, honestly.
Yeah, Jeremy, he's a huge Cowboys fan. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I know you're not happy probably. Cowboys might have much higher expectations than we did going into the year, but I'm happy. I mean, obviously I want my team to win 16 games, but I try to be as realistic as I can. Mike and me were talking right before we went live. I was thinking between 4 and 6 wins when the year started. I try to lean more on my optimistic opinion, so I said 6. Probably 5 or 6 wins. That's what I was realistically thinking going into the year. That's where we're at. It just so happens that we're ending this season so far bad. We've lost 3 straight, but when you looked at the schedule, I don't think many people had us winning these games down the stretch. I think it's more so the method in which we've lost and why people may be upset. But I mean, I like where the Giants are at outside, and maybe I would have seen more growth from Jones this year, but like Mike was saying, there's some factors to that. Saquon Barkley didn't play the whole year, and people want to discount that. That's a huge thing. Saquon Barkley's who this offense was going to revolve around in both the pass and rushing game. Daniel Jones' highest passing total all year came in the first game of the year that Saquon Barkley played in against the best defense in football in Pittsburgh. So I think that has something to do with the the ineptitude of the offense this year. Saquon Barkley being out, obviously a young offensive line. I think there's factors. So overall, I like the growth of the team. I'm not going to say I love it. We still have a lot of holes, and we're going to have a whole offseason to fill it. But we've got a very exciting playoff. I'm going to playoff game this week against your Dallas Cowboys, Jeremy. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, I guess the only way it's not a playoff game is if Washington wins. But I guess from our perspective in the Cowboys, it is still a playoff game. So that is well said. From my guy, Andrew. Andrew, the guy I'm beating in the spread pick show by 7 picks, by the way. Haha. But anyway, Daniel Jones or Trey Lance? Look, I'm going to have to think about this one because I do like myself some Trey Lance. I don't know if Chris, have you watched him yet or no? I don't know if you
I have seen some Trey Lance.
All right, take the floor.
It's going to be Daniel Jones. Now, are you asking who's better? That's impossible for me to answer because to me, I can't judge a quarterback fully until he plays at the pro level. Like, there's so many quarterbacks I could see, and in college they look great, and then you see them in the NFL and they look like completely different quarterbacks. So it also comes down to the scheme that they play in. I think Jones is set up just like he was in Duke right now so far in his career, which is with very little help, and you're asking him to do a whole lot that he's not really capable of doing. Trey Lance is an exciting prospect. He's a guy with high upside. And if I'll tell you this right now, Mike, if I was a GM, and I'm a Giants fan, so I like some things with Daniel Jones, whatever. If I was a GM, the type of quarterback I would draft, if you're asking me the type of quarterback I'd be looking for, it'd be a boom or bust guy. If it was a first-round pick, I'd be looking for the guy like Josh Allen on the Bills with huge potential, and if he busts, he busts. Second round, I'd look for more guys like Daniel Jones, safer guys. But if I had a high pick and I had a choice between a safer guy and a guy with a huge ceiling, but he could be a complete bust, I'd go for the guy with the huge ceiling.
That is music to my ears. That's exactly how I would do it. People call me the Twitter GM. If I was a real GM, I would definitely do that same thing. Take a shot, take a home run swing at a quarterback that has the crazy high ceiling. And once again, I've said this before, that is why on draft night I had the negative reaction to Daniel Jones, because I looked at Daniel Jones and I don't know, I could be wrong, of course, but I looked at Daniel Jones as a guy that had the Kirk Cousins, Andy Dalton type ceiling of you'll win 7 to 9 games a year with this guy, but do you ever get to the NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl? I feel like with a quarterback like him, if he reached that potential, you're not going to get to that Super Bowl. So that's the problem. So that was I never said Daniel Jones is complete crap. I think he can play in this league. It just, you have to surround him with almost a perfect team, which kind of makes you, kind of limit your room for error as a GM or a guy that puts the team together. If you have a quarterback like that, if you had a guy, let's just hypothetically say Trey Lance turns into a guy that I think he could be like a Deshaun Watson. Of course, he has a floor of like Deshaun Kaiser, but if he turns into Deshaun Watson, then all of a sudden you don't have to have a ridiculously stacked team. If Trey Lance turns into a Josh Allen type of guy, you don't have to have a great roster like you need with Daniel Jones to go to the promised land and win a Super Bowl.
In fairness, though, and I'm not going to debate you. I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. I said going into the year, Josh Allen's going to have the Lamar Jackson type year, and I look pretty smart there. Sometimes I look really dumb. I look pretty smart there. But in fairness, though, Josh Allen, even though he did show signs of progression last year, he exploded this year, and a lot of that has to do with the addition of Stephon Diggs. So let's give Daniel Jones his Stephon Diggs, and let's see if he can improve next year.
Yeah, a lot of it for Allen was mechanics, and for Diggs, I think it was like the Jordan Palmer school or something. He went to his quarterback school. I think they talked about he fixed his front foot, I guess pointed his feet at the receiver more, and it made him a lot more accurate. Like I always said, I don't know if accuracy is fixable, which is why I was kind of I put Josh Allen in that Sam Darnold territory of I don't know what to think about this guy. So, when he fixes that accuracy, though, all of a sudden you're like, wow, this guy has a super high ceiling, and now we're seeing it. So he's playing like an MVP. I still think our man Aaron Rodgers wins the MVP, but at the same time, Josh Allen is playing like an MVP this year.
I got a question for you, Mike, and I posted it on Twitter today. Is Aaron Rodgers the greatest quarterback of all time?
Me, I'm going to say yeah. I mean, in my lifetime,
I think he is.
I can't speak on the Joe Montanas and all those type of guys, Dan Marino,
but people are always going to say Brady because of the Super Bowls.
Yeah, right.
But you look at Aaron Rodgers, 2 different schemes. 2 different years. You could argue that his 2011 season and this season are the 2 greatest statistical years in football history at the quarterback position. 122 QB rating in 2011. This year he's got a 119, 44 touchdowns, 5 picks. He's got a combined 94 touchdowns, 11 picks over his last 3 seasons. 2 of those seasons they said he was done. So to me, Aaron Rodgers, and he's never thrown a touchdown to a first-round wide receiver.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers to me is a freak of nature.
Yep. No, I'm with you 100%. I'm a big fan of him. This guy, Andrew Allen, once told me that he thought Aaron Rodgers was regressing based on the stats. I tried to talk him out of it. Rodgers has a lot left in the tank, of course, but he has definitely proven some people wrong this year, and I love him. So I really do hope he wins his 3rd MVP, I think it would be. From DJ Smooth, y'all want Ed Dodds. It's Ed Dodds, 2 Ds, not Bs. I see that a lot, but it's a tough one, so it's all right. But yeah, I definitely am a big Ed Dodds guy. The Colts have done a lot of great things. The thing I love about the Colts in their front office is that they are not afraid to trade back and get more draft picks. The most famous trade, of course, was that one with the Jets where they went from the 3rd pick to the 6th pick and acquired 3 second-round picks as well. So I was a big fan of that. When you can trade back and get talent like that, they even draft some talented guys like Julian Blackmon's a safety they got in round 3 or 4, who was one of the defensive player of the years for rookies, one of the candidates for that. So they're a good drafting team for the most part. I still feel like they need a better quarterback. I'm not sold on Phillip Rivers carrying that team to the Super Bowl, but yes, I would be a big fan of Ed Dodds.
And they've done a great job. The Colts team is exactly how I would build a football team. They built it from the inside out. They just need a quarterback now. They don't have the franchise quarterback, but they've really built that defense. They hit on their offensive line. They traded down. They got assets in 18. The Colts have done a great job. Yeah, if we were bringing an outsider, he'd probably actually be my first choice. Actually, I'd lean Caserio because of his ties to Judge, but just based off of resume, I would probably lean him as my first choice.
Right. I feel like Ed Dodds would not be a Giants type of hire. It would be out of the box in some sorts, but at the same time, Joe Judge was an out of the box hire as well. So maybe the Giants are doing some new stuff, but I feel like based on what they usually do, I feel like Ed Dodds is not really a possibility, but we'll find out. G-Men Rising, hope we win Sunday. There you go. But if we have a top 6 pick and an external GM, Jones shouldn't be forced on a new GM. If he finds a guy he likes in the draft, take him. I mean, that's fair. If you really think, if the new GM comes in and thinks this guy is 95% chance of franchise quarterback, you look at him and Daniel Jones and say, this draft prospect's a better quarterback, in my opinion, has room for a better career than Daniel Jones. I'm not going to be mad about it. I would feel bad personally for Daniel Jones because he never had a fair chance here because the rosters he's had around him suck and all that. But, I mean, I would hope he finds success elsewhere. But if a new GM really feels strongly about a quarterback that has a higher ceiling and more upside, I can't be mad at that, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad. I mean, listen, that's what I would worry about as a New York Giant fan. I would worry that they would force Daniel Jones on the new GM if they were bringing in an outsider. You don't want to do that. You don't want to handicap your GM. It's what we did with Dave Gettleman, in my opinion. I think they said you got to go with Eli Manning. You don't want to do that with your general manager. And I think that's why I don't think it's the right time to bring in an outsider, because knowing the Giants, Mike, I think they would. And right. I don't think that's the way to go about doing it. It's why I think they're going to stick with Gettleman or hire in-house. I could be wrong, but that's what I think is going to happen.
From Demon L, yo, Chris, no camo hat?
I couldn't find it today.
What are you doing there?
I couldn't find it today. I was looking for it before my video. I couldn't find the hat.
If DJ doesn't work out in 21, there will be no, I guess, desirable quarterback prospects for New York in 22's draft. Is bridge quarterback an option or a DJ extension? What do you think about that?
Let me read it again. If he doesn't work out in 21, if he regressed or didn't get any better, and you got, let's just preface this by saying you got him weapons and you made some changes that you felt you needed to make, and he's still not the guy. At that point, if there's not a quarterback, first off, you try to trade up. If there's a quarterback you really like and you feel like you can't get him in 2022, you do whatever you can to go and get that quarterback, or 2020, whatever it is. If you can't, and you feel like he's not the guy, then yeah, I think you look for a bridge quarterback, or at least make it a quarterback competition with a potential free agent. It all comes down to cap space and everything else. But yeah, I think you look for a bridge quarterback. That's like kind of what Carolina did with Teddy Bridgewater. They felt like they didn't have the guy over there, and they weren't in a position to draft a quarterback, so they signed Bridgewater with a 3-year deal. You could get out after 2, and then the next year, if you like a quarterback, you could draft a quarterback then. But yeah, that would be my approach. If in 2022 I felt like Jones wasn't the guy and there wasn't a guy worth drafting, I would look for a free agent on a 2 or 3 year contract as a bridge quarterback.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. And it looks like Carolina made the right move because Cam Newton looks like he's finished at this point. So I guess they did make the right move. Didn't translate to a lot of wins, but I think the Giants should try to do something similar. I've talked about Jacoby Brissett. It depends how much it would cost. And some people like the idea. Some people are like, do you really want to allocate that much cap space to a backup quarterback? But my thought is, if you have the cap space and you're not going to spend it elsewhere, then you might as well get a good backup quarterback. But if not, then you'll have to settle for someone a bit less. I've heard Ryan Fitzpatrick as well. That would be great. I would definitely sign up for him. But yeah, I think the Giants should have some type of insurance or competition next year. I think it would be better. Like the Giants in the past have had a lot of just, I guess just a guy type backup quarterbacks. I mean, ever since like David Carr, we haven't had like a legit backup quarterback. We've had the Davis Webbs and the who was the guy that backed up Eli for a while, like after the Super Bowl years, Ryan Nassib, I think it was.
Ryan Nassib, and you had the hefty lefty Lorenzen.
Yeah, right.
And then we drafted Gettleman drafted in 2018. He drafted what's his name, 4th round pick out of Richmond, Letta. Yeah, and he got a couple of DWIs. Yeah, but I just want to make sure you didn't miss some of these because I felt like you might have skipped some, but maybe you're just jumping around.
I'm not good at this.
Just because I don't want people to be losing.
Yeah.
Get that one, and then I'll tell you the other ones.
All right. DJ Smooth, you missed my first chat. See, here we go. I'm missing chats already. I'm sorry. I need to get better at it. But y'all want Getty gone and Garrett and new GM means Wilson. I guess that's Zach Wilson. I mean, look, if Zach Wilson fell to our pick, I do like him as a prospect. I don't think he is either. Yeah. But if the Giants kind of tying into that last question we had about if a new GM came in and wanted Zach Wilson, I can get on board with that. I do like Zach Wilson as a prospect. If it was between him and Daniel Jones's Duke tape, I would take Zach Wilson. I'm not going to lie. So if they made that move, I can't hate it. I guess we'll see. But I agree with you. I don't think he'll fall that far anyway, so it's probably not something to worry about. And for Jason Garrett, I think everyone wants him gone. I don't care if he put up 45 points this week. I still think we've seen way too much this year where there's not enough creativity with this offense. It feels very old-fashioned. He's gotten away from the run when he probably shouldn't have in certain cases this year. So I am ready to move on from Garrett. I think 99% of Giants fans are. Have you seen, because we see a lot of opinions from people, have you seen one instance of a person defending Jason Garrett this year or no?
I defended him up until about the last 3 or 4 weeks because of the limitations to the offense and because I did like the run-first approach. But in terms of his passing concepts, I can't defend it. And the offense has not performed. So I'm here's my mindset on it. I'm like you said with Gettleman, with Judge, it's the same thing with the offensive coordinator. I'm going to trust Judge. And if Judge feels like another year in the scheme and because of the limitations due to Barkley and not having supreme weapons on the outside, he thinks Garrett could still get the job done, I'm going to trust it. If Judge feels like they got to bring in another guy with more creativity and more modern-day offense, I'm going to be on board with it. So I'm going to trust Judge. That's my mindset on it.
Right. As we know now, it is more of a John Mara hire. As I said, I want Joe Judge to make these decisions. And if Joe Judge wants a new OC, I agree. Move on and get a different one. From Mike Francesa, can people stop comparing Eli to Jones and saying DJ is better? I made a video about this. I don't like it either, Mike, but different era, different CBA. Also, Eli could elevate himself to levels DJ won't be able to. Well, I guess we'll see if he'll be able to. But yeah, I made the video about it. Eli was such a highly touted prospect compared to Daniel Jones. Yeah. Some people had Daniel Jones in the second round of their mock drafts. No one even thought 6th overall was a possibility. So way different prospects, different type quarterbacks. Similar personas and different stuff like that, or similar stuff like that. But when you look away from personality and look at them on the football field, I don't see the similar type player in my opinion. So I'll say that.
It's inevitable that they're going to get compared. Obviously, he's right. Eli Manning's replacement. They look alike. They were friends. They had flip cup together. So it's inevitable that they're going to get compared to one another. But yeah, in terms of an actual quarterback, when you watch them on the field, they couldn't be any more apart. Other than the fact that they're the same height. Daniel Jones, to me, like you said, listen, I got to see Eli Manning from the beginning. Eli Manning was a special quarterback. People may not realize that Daniel Jones is not Eli Manning, and that's okay. If he learns what his strengths are and we build the team around him, you could still win football games. But to me, he's not Eli Manning. They're not the same quarterback. Eli Manning he had one of the top 3 or 4 arms in the league, as far as I'm concerned, when he was at his best. I mean, that guy threw a beautiful deep ball. And I'm not saying Jones doesn't have accuracy on his deep ball, but when I think of Jones, I don't think of this guy that's going to go out there and is going to sling it 40, 45 times. He's just not that type of quarterback. That doesn't, Lamar Jackson's not that type of quarterback. He wins games. They have to build their offense around Daniel Jones, but they're not the same quarterback. I don't agree with the comparisons.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. From Esar, thank you for the donation. Kyler Fackrell coming back to haunt the Cowboys like he did last time with the pick 6. That was a fun play. Playoff experience greater than draft picks. Bozos. I do agree with that as well. So yeah, Kyler Fackrell should be coming back. Hopefully, that is a kind of a low key big loss. When they lost him, I figured, oh, that sucks. But I didn't expect it to really, be haunt them that much as it did now. They need a guy like Kyler Fackrell out there because, Jabal Sheard and Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin in recent weeks has not really gotten it done. So when you add a Kyler Fackrell there, hopefully things will get better. Because I said to you before we started, if the Giants get no pressure on Andy Dalton, they're not going to win this game. And bringing back a guy like Fackrell will definitely help that.
Kyler Fackrell, I think a lot of people forgot about him because he hasn't played in a while. He was actually really good for the Giants. It was an underrated acquisition. He's going to be an interesting name, Mike. Everybody's talking about Leonard Williams. Everybody's talking about Dalvin Tomlinson. He's on a 1-year deal. He fits the scheme. He's going to be an interesting one, and whether or not the New York Giants bring him back. But yeah, as thin as we've been at that edge rusher position, Fackrell, yes, I'm glad he's back. We need him.
Yeah, for sure. When I made my mini offseason preview, I do want Kyler Fackrell back. If it's a 1 year deal again, he's a Patrick Graham guy. I say go for it. It really can't hurt. From Max again, thank you. I think we beat Dallas. Our defense is good, but we don't versus mobile quarterbacks. That's interesting. The only bad game with non-mobile quarterback is Cleveland. We didn't have half or D that game. So yeah, that's honestly, I'm trying to think back, but that is a pretty good thought. Like when the Giants do play quarterbacks that are pocket passers. Think about Jared Goff, Tom Brady come to mind. They played pretty well against Ben Roethlisberger in week 1. They do usually fare pretty well. And then, of course, when they played Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson.
Outside of when we played Nick Mullins and the 49ers.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that yet.
No, but it's a good point he brings up because over our last 3 games, Murray is obviously a different animal. So is Lamar Jackson. And the game against Cleveland, we didn't have James Bradbury. He was our most important player in the defense. We were also missing Darnay Holmes. So it's a good point he brings up. We may very well match up, even though Mike, the wide receivers Dallas has. I really worry. And it's not like Dalton's going to go out there and sling it all over the field, but I really worry about how our secondary is going to be able to cover them. We're not going to win this game, in my opinion, like we did against Seattle, where it was like 17-12. Yeah. That's not going to happen. We're going to have to put up at least mid-20s to have any chance to win this game. But it's a good point he brings up about the immobile quarterbacks.
Yeah, the one that haunts me and definitely it leaves me concerned is Michael Gallup against Isaac Yiadom, because Michael Gallup's been eating lately. He's been great. Isaac Yiadom has been the complete opposite lately. He had one high point in the year where we thought, okay, this guy's serviceable, but he has not looked good. He missed a ton of tackles on Sunday. That's the one that really concerns me.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You brought up missed tackles, and Yiadom had plenty of them. What about McKinney, man? Are you a little? And I don't want to go crazy because I know people are going crazy about Thomas 4 starts into his career too, and then we saw him get better. Disappointed though. I think that's fair so far with McKinney. His tackling was really bad in that game.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was really excited for the addition of McKinney. I thought he'd be a really big piece of this defense. And when I watched that all 22 against the Ravens, I said, what is this guy doing? Like, he was taking terrible angles. I'm hoping that it contributes to not playing for a while and being a bit rusty, but that I did not like what I saw. I'm going to put it that way. And the fact that this is going to, be one we look back on in years is that a safety taken a bit later, Antoine Winfield has had a great career with the Bucs. And if we miss on that pick, it's going to be detrimental. So, I really hope that McKinney turns it around and we actually find ourselves a really great, versatile safety. But I will say that performance on Sunday absolutely disappointed me because there was that Gus Edwards play. There was a run play where he took a terrible angle. There were at least a few examples where he just looked really just not good. So, that's something to be concerned about, in my opinion. Next, from, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Zeno? X-Eno? 1121, but I appreciate it.
I'm going to go with the silent X. I'm going to go with Zeno on that, Mike. I think you got it right the first time. Yeah.
That sounds good, though. It will never happen, but I want Pat Shurmur as our OC. Makes sense. I actually replied to this for Bobby Skinner tweeted it. Who should be the Giants OC next year? I said Pat Shurmur as a joke, but if Pat Shurmur got fired, Chris, let's put it this way. If he got fired from the Broncos after 1 year, they give up on Locke and just blow up everything there. Pat Shurmur sitting there. Do the Giants maybe bring him back?
First off, I want to say hello to Steven Evans, one of my best subscribers. Glad he's in the chat. Pat Shurmur, I actually really like him as an offensive coordinator. I thought he did a really good job with Daniel Jones his first year. Outside of the turnovers, and maybe Jones wasn't ready to have all that responsibility on his plate, with the turnovers and everything else. But in terms of the way the offense orchestrated the big plays, and he's always been known as a really good quarterback guy. You go back, you look, Nick Foles had the 3rd best QB rating in the history of football his second year in the league under Pat Shurmur as the OC. Bradford had his best year ever under Shurmur. And Case Keenum led the Vikings to the NFC title game. That's why he got the job with the Giants, but it'll never happen. Joe Judge, in my opinion, would never be like, oh, yeah, you're the guy I replace. Yeah, let's bring you on the staff. Yeah, could you imagine the quarter? It would just be super uncomfortable. The players, it would never happen. But if we're playing Madden, yeah, sure, go ahead, bring him back. But in real life, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to make that point. If you can take personalities and emotions out of it, I feel like logically it makes a lot of sense to make that move. But you're right. Joe Judge is not going to be like, oh, yeah, I replaced you. I'll just, bring you back. I don't know. I don't know if Pat Shurmur would stoop to that level. Maybe he would. But I will say this. You did mention the turnovers. Turnovers suck from a quarterback. There's a limit. You don't want a Jameis Winston. But I will say with the turnovers, the Giants' upside for their offense last year compared to this year was so much greater. Like the Giants at least had games last year where they were scoring in the high 30s, even 30 plus. We have not had a game this year where we scored over 30 offensive points, and we're in week freaking 17. Like it's a joke. So give me a more turnover opportunities, if you will,
to
at least put more points up. I like the high upside play. Like that's what I like. I don't like being totally conservative the entire game, trying to put up 17 to 21 points and relying on the defense in 2020's NFL where the rules heavily favor the offense. That's not a way to win, in my opinion. Sometimes you have a defense great enough to do that, but as we've seen in recent weeks, I don't know if the Giants defense is getting figured out. I mean, there's a lot of zone coverage that's annoying me with Patrick Graham, but I don't know if it's that or the guys are getting tired because the time possession has been so bad for our offense. But whatever it is, it seems like it's not working in recent weeks, and we we have to get better on offense. It's like not a secret at this point, so they have to get better, honestly.
Oh yeah, I went into the year thinking I went into the year thinking ball control was the way to win, but it's not because I want it to be the way that we win. It's because I looked at the roster, and especially after Barkley went down. But absolutely, next year we have to have a more explosive offense. We have to be able to put up 30 points in football games to win. And in order to do that, we have to go out there. We got to get some wide receivers, and we got to get Barkley back.
Yeah, definitely. I do want that wide receiver one. I think, honestly, the way I think about it, I feel like it's going to happen through the draft. I think Andrew's asking me about this right now. So let's say the Giants make the playoffs and end up getting the 19th pick. Do you trade up to get a wide receiver? If not, what position are you looking at? Honestly, I have not looked that deep into the draft to know who would be there in that 19 area. I will say from the receivers I've watched so far, I've probably watched like 5 or 6 guys. There's 3 really good receivers. What are their names? There is Jamar Chase, you have Devontae Smith, and then you have Jalen Waddle. Yep. There could be some other great ones I haven't watched yet, but I feel like there's a big 3 in a way with this wide receiver class. There's one guy from LSU who's not too bad either.
He's tall. The other guy.
Oh yeah. He's like 6'4", 200, right? Yeah. I forget his name, but yes, there are good prospects, and we've seen in recent years like you can get really good receivers late first round. I mean, Andrew's team, the Eagles, took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. I keep breaking his balls. I'm sorry, but anyway, I mean, you see moves like that, but there are great receivers in round 2, round 3. So, like, you can make it work. Would I trade up for one? I mean, I have to have a really strong hunch about, like, I like Devontae Smith. I don't know if I would, like, trade up for a guy like that. You know what I mean? So I'll see what you say, but I don't think I would trade up for one.
No, and again, I got to see the draft board. I got to see who's ahead of me. I got to see who needs receivers. Like, that's a really tough question to answer. But personally, if I was a GM, especially if it's the wide receiver position, you're talking about, you go back, you look at the history of the wide receiver position. You brought it up. We brought it up earlier. Chase Claypool, Justin Jefferson. You could find value at that position. I'm not trading up. If I'm trading up in a draft, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be for a quarterback in the first round. So no, I'm standing pat if I'm taking a wide receiver at 19.
Right. Even Michael Pittman's a guy we forgot. I think he went 2nd round to the Colts or late 2nd, but he's also a pretty decent player. G-Man Rising, I think DG will be gone if we lose, but stay if we win. That's actually funny how that works, how one game is going to decipher if he's back or not. But I feel like a lot of people have this take, honestly. Mara is an emotional owner, definitely true, and is always looking for someone to blame, and DG is the sitting duck. I mean, I think that John Mara made it pretty evident last year at this time that Gettleman has to get the batting average up, the wins have to get higher. If you have another 5-11 season, I don't know how you stomach that as an owner and say, let's bring that guy back. I mean, I've seen crazier things happen, but if they make the playoffs at 6-10, does that warrant? Is that enough for a guy to stay? Because 6-10 is 6-10. I know it makes the playoffs, but it's still not great. There is a new head coach, a lot of new, both new systems. There is that, and they did start off very poorly. So if you look at the past 2 months, they're a better football team, but you have to have some forward thinking if you're Mara. Does this get better in the future? Do we actually start in September playing well, or is it going to be like the past 3 years where they start off terrible, go 1-6, 1-7, 0-8, whatever it is, and then start playing better the second half? Because we can't have that again. The Giants cannot take off the first 2 months of the year.
I think you hit it on the head. I think you hit it on the head earlier, personally, and we'll see. I don't think it's Mara's decision. I think it's Judge's. Regardless
completely?
of whether I'm not going to say completely, but I think he has a lot of say. And if Judge likes Gettleman, I think the decision's already made. I think Gettleman's staying. If Judge wants to change, I think the decision's already made, regardless of whether we win or lose this game. I'm going to tell you this right now, Mike. This game should have nothing to do with whether or not Gettleman goes or whether he stays. They should know that already. They've seen the season, and I agree with them that Gettleman was a sitting duck, and Gettleman was going to get the blame by the fan base no matter what happened this season. They could have won 7 games, and fans would have wanted to change. Even though, in my opinion, realistically speaking, it was a 5-win team. He was a sitting duck. He was not going to, in the fan base's eyes, overall, they were going to want him fired no matter what the team did this year, unless they won like 9 or 10 games, which was never going to happen. So I think they already have their mind set up, and I think it's Judge. I think Judge has a lot of say in this. If Judge likes Gettleman, I think Gettleman's going to stay. If Judge wants a change and to bring in his guy, I think the Giants are going to afford him that opportunity.
Right. And you made good points there. It should not come down to one game out of, how many games has Gettleman been here? I don't even know. But it should not come down to one game. But knowing John Mara, I could see it as a possibility, which is sad, but I feel like it's a possibility, honestly. Next from Esar, thank you again. I guess this is cornerback wide receiver matchups. Jay Love, so Julian Love playing cornerback on Michael Gallup. I mean, honestly, we'll talk about that after. But Brad B on Cooper, Amari Cooper, which would be I think Cooper plays a lot of slot. I think him and Lamb kind of switch off. But Bradbury, Cooper, and Darnay Holmes and CeeDee Lamb. What do you think about Julian Love and Isaac Yiadom? Because Julian Love played cornerback in that Browns game. I don't think he was that bad. He got pretty unlucky because a lot of guys made some really great contested catches against him, and they were playing a lot of zone as well. But there was one play, Love hit Jarvis Landry right away, and the guy made a crazy-ass catch. So, there's not much you can do as a cornerback in that situation. Do you prefer Julian Love, or do you want to see Isaac Yiadom more in Week 17?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters personally. I don't think either one. I think either one in this game has to go to church before it. Because I don't see them matching up with these Dallas Cowboys receivers. Let's put it this way: if you ask me going into 2021, would I be okay with either one of those two being my starting second cornerback? Absolutely not. So I am not super confident, regardless who's playing opposite James Bradbury in this game.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had high hopes for Julian Love. I didn't think he was amazing, but I wanted to at least give him a shot at cornerback too once the DeAndre Baker news came out. I think that would have made a lot of sense, but he didn't get a shot till half the cornerback room was out, unfortunately. From Mike Francesa again, thank you. FYI, Broncos fans are complaining about Shermer's schemes. Not a fan of keeping JG, but understand that Jones plus weapons are to blame. Two for the offense. Yeah, I mean, I think we all know it's a combination of a lot of things. I put out a tweet probably like a week ago, trying to put percentages on what I think the problem is. I said I think 40% of the problem is Jason Garrett. I think 30% is Jones not playing to a high enough level. I had 10% or something like that on separation of lack of separation by wide receivers, and then the other 10% was offensive line. I feel like that has changed because the offensive line and wide receivers have been terrible lately, and Daniel Jones has been really good lately. So I will say that, but there's a lot of problems that go into it, but the good news is that this is solvable. This is definitely salvageable if you get a wide receiver one in the draft or free agency. You get a star running back, a young offensive line that you think is going to get better, and a play caller that's not a bottom 3 play caller in football. I feel like that can really change things in a positive direction. I'm not saying the Giants will put up the most points of football. They won't be top 5, even top 10. But if you can be a league average offense, putting up the numbers the Giants did under Pat Shurmur, I know their defense wasn't good, but still have a good defense and put up 22, 23, 24, 25 points a game, you'll find yourself in more games and give yourselves more wins. I feel like for how bad the Giants offense is, it's kind of impressive in a way to have 5 wins. I will say that, possibly 6. So there is that.
The other positive I want to make a point of next year that'll be in the Giants' favor, in my opinion, is a lesser schedule. It's not going to be as tough as this year. This year, Mike, I looked at it. People just look at the strength of schedule and they say, the Giants' schedule wasn't that tough. I had a couple people write that in the comments, but it's because we play in the NFC East. Every team in the NFC East got beat up by the divisions that we played out of the division. 8 teams out of the 10 teams we played out of the division right now would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. The year before it was 4. So right. I think that the Giants will get a little bit softer of a schedule. You have to think Barkley will be back. Even if he's not 100%, he's still an upgrade, and he's somebody that the opposing defense has to respect. You figure they're going to do everything they can to upgrade the weapons. I think there's reasons to think this team will be better next year, plus the familiarity of the scheme, the continuity of the offensive line, having another year together. And Jones, second year in the scheme that they bring back, Garrett, or hopefully he learns that new scheme real quick.
Right. Mike again, and I get the desire to let Jones loose, but I think his strength as a manager with a strong run offense, he can't go loose without 25, 30 turnovers. Well, that's a problem. I mean, if you're going to turn the ball over that much, that is a problem. But let me ask you this, and even I'll ask Mike as well in a way. Would you rather have a quarterback have, let's say, put a number on it, 2.1 turnovers per game average, but average 29 point something points per game on offense? Or would you rather have Daniel Jones have 0.4 turnovers per game and average like 18 points on offense? Like, I know turnovers aren't good, but give me the team and the quarterback that's going to give me the most points. You win the game by putting the most points on the board. And I know if you turn them all over, you put your defense in crappier situations, but at the same time, if you're going to score 10 more points by being a little more, letting Jones loose, I feel like it's worth it, because you're not, as I said, you're not going to win many games with the 31st ranked offense that the Giants have right now.
My take is it's kind of in the middle. I don't think with the team we have now you could completely cut them loose, because we don't have the talent to put up points, and they're not going to create separation, and the offense, you know what I'm saying? So I think you need I'm not saying you need a perfect situation, but you need to have some threats on offense to be able to turn it loose. But I do agree, ideally, yes, when you get the pieces in place to get the most out of your offense, yeah, I would much rather have a team. I'm a huge Eli Manning fan. He's my favorite player of all time, Mike. He turned it over as much as anybody, but he had the ability to go out there and win games, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Giants supported him with a good roster. But yeah, absolutely, I could live with turnovers if you're putting up points and you're winning football games.
Yeah, for sure. DJ Smooth again, thank you. Will DJ have a Josh Allen season? And Getty is 14-33 time. It's up to, I'm reading this wrong. Chris, you want to take this one? Because I don't know how to read.
Will DJ have a Josh Allen season? That's impossible to know right now. I'll answer it. Will DJ have a Josh Allen season? I'm going to say no. Josh Allen's third in the MVP as far as I'm concerned right now. The guy's playing on another level, and if I'm being completely honest with you, he's not as talented. Josh Allen was known as a guy that was a super boom or super bust prospect. And when you watch the guy play, your eyes pop out of your head because you say other quarterbacks can't do that. Daniel Jones can't do what Josh Allen does, but I got news for you. 30 other quarterbacks can't. The guy is an unbelievable talent, and he matured, he got better, and he's a project that worked out. So no, I do not think he's going to have a 40 touchdown season. I don't think he's going to go out there and, do the things that Josh Allen could do, but that doesn't mean he can't win football games. And then he says Getty is 14-33. It's time is up. It's crazy getting more time. Hey, we'll see what happens. What I'll say, and it's not even defense of Gettleman. We say it all the time. 2018, they should have started the rebuild. They didn't. Mistake. Whether it's ownership, whether it's merit, we can debate that till the cows come home. 2019, I expected losses because, Mike, what happens when you start a rebuild? You scrap the entire roster and losses come with it. So from 19 on, I'm not going to hold the record so much against him. What I will hold against him is some of the decisions he made. And I think that's fair. But I think when you rebuild, you have to expect to have a poor record before you start to come out of the cellar.
Yeah, no, I agree. Daniel Jones being Josh Allen, I can't see it. I hope it happens. I really cannot see it. I just think those guys have such different upside and they're different style of players. Chris has made the Daniel Jones ceiling comparison to Ryan Tannehill. I feel like that's your best case scenario. So I think Josh Allen's far-fetched in my opinion. And for the record, I mean, I get it. And Chris did bring up good points. I mean, they should have started the rebuild in 18. Fans like myself and some others wanted that. They decided to go all in, whether it was John Mayer or Gettleman, which is a bad decision in general, kind of set us back a year. And now we're in year 3 of Gettleman, and we're still, we have a chance to make the playoffs, so that's a positive, but we're still 6-10 and kind of one of the bottom 10 teams of football. So I feel like we should be further progressed in the Gettleman era, but 2018 was a wasted season. We all know that, but I said this last year. I guess we'll push it back another year. Next year, they have to actually start winning. Like, we cannot have another year of this.
I'll tell you right now, if Gettleman is back and Jones is back, which I think we're like 100% he's going to be back. If they're not at least an 8-win team, heads are going to roll. They have to start really turning the corner next year and really show ownership, in my opinion. I think ownership knew what it was coming into this year, if they were being honest with themselves, with all the challenges and the fact that they were still a really young roster. I mean, come on, let's be real. That they knew that this team wasn't going to win 10 games this year. And I don't know if 10 games should be the expectations next year, but I don't want to put a win total on it, but this team has to be ultra competitive next year, and they have to be definitely much improved. Otherwise, you may see another rebuild again. They may have to start from scratch, but in my heart, I really do believe, whether it's Gettleman or whether it's in-house, I do believe they try to keep it together for one more year, and they try to see this rebuild through. That's where I'm at right now. That's what I think is going to happen. It may not. If they bring in an outside GM, I think it's almost like you're starting from scratch all over again. I think they're going to blow it up. And I think they're going to start another rebuild. So we'll see what they decide to do.
I don't know if I can go through that again. Like, I'm gonna be a Giants fan till I die, but another rebuild, like,
I don't
just
want
get it
it.
right.
I don't
Come
want it.
on. This is why we need Daniel Jones to be great next year. We cannot have another rebuild, please. Cruzan, 26. We have the second worst offense. Screw the playoffs. Wow. Okay. All right. So this is a different take here. I get where he's coming from, or he or she's coming from. You do get a better pick if you don't make the playoffs. But as we said before, there's not like a generational wide receiver. There is that really good tight end from Florida, Pitts, but like, do you even take him? And like, I don't know. I just feel like making the playoffs just serves your team better right now for the current state the Giants are in. You have your quarterback. We think he's going to be here next year. So you're not drafting a quarterback. You're not drafting a Chase Young type guy who's a can't miss. I feel like making the playoffs is the more positive thing to do right now. I could see if it was meaningless. If it was meaningless, I'd be a Dallas Cowboy fan this week. I'm not going to lie. But if this game, you can make the playoffs, I mean, I want to win. I'm not going to lie. So I get where you're coming from. 31st offense is horrible, but I cannot say screw the playoffs. I cannot say that.
I understand where he's coming from, too. I know that there's a lot at stake. You get a higher draft pick, but and I respect Cruzan. He's a great supporter and a really smart Giants fan. He actually hits on a lot of things that I don't. But I'm going to say I do want them to make the playoffs. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm a fan. I'm not going to tell you how to root for your team. I understand where you're coming from. You want them to be in a better situation going into the next year. You feel a higher draft pick will do that. I'm going to root for them to make the playoffs. And I'm going to look at it like if they do lose, well, we get that higher draft pick. But I'm definitely rooting for them to make the playoffs. And then obviously on Sunday night, obviously I'm pulling for the Philadelphia Eagles, which I don't get to say that often.
That's definitely true. Shout out little basketball here. Trade Kyrie and KD for Frank Randall. Who says no? I know who says no. Not you guys, but me. I'm going to say no. I will say though, Chris, 2-2 records for both of us. Who would have thought? I mean, you guys have been playing well the last 2 games. We have not. So, I mean, I will give you some credit there. You and Shaw give you guys some credit. The Knicks have looks. You beat the Bucks. I mean, the Bucks are a damn good team.
That's our Super Bowl. No, but okay. I mean, the Nets are still really good. I know they had one of the guys. I'm not a huge Nets fan. I know one of your players got hurt, right?
Dinwiddie, yeah,
Dinwiddie, yeah. But the Nets, they're still going to be one of the top 3 teams in the East this year. Top 3-4 teams in the East this year. I wouldn't sweat it if I was a Nets fan. The Knicks, we'll be happy if we're an 8 seed. But for the first time in a long time, I'm really excited about the Knicks. Because they finally, I think, are doing it the right way, and they're rebuilding, and they're building from the draft, and you're starting to see promise in some of these young players. But the thing that I'm really happy about with the Knicks, I like our coach for the first time in a long time.
I was going to ask you.
I love Tom Thibodeau. He's much like Judge. He's one of those guys that gets the most out of his players. I'm really excited about the Knicks right now. Not so much for this year in terms of playoffs, but just the direction they're going in. I'm happy about the Knicks right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm happy for you guys. I mean, look, I do kind of like when the Knicks are bad. It's funny because of like they go all in for like situations they should not go all in for, and like they give up their future. Like you think back to the Carmelo Anthony trade, we're going back a decade, but they gave up so many assets for that guy. I mean, you're shaking your head, but yeah, I mean, it's. I'm happy the Knicks are finally doing things right.
That was the dumbest trade in the history, maybe of all my sports teams.
Who did they trade? It was Felton, Wilson Chandler, Gallinari,
Timothy
probably
Mozgov,
3 other good players.
Mozgov. They traded away like 3 draft picks.
Yeah,
for a guy they could have signed the next year.
Mm-hmm. I went through the melodrama myself because the Nets, if you remember, had a deal.
There was a rumor that he was going to go to you guys.
Yeah, they had a deal. They had a deal done, but Carmelo would not commit to signing long term with the Nets, so it never went through. And then he went to you guys, probably a blessing in disguise.
And I think you guys almost pressured the Knicks to get Carmelo because you guys wasn't that the same year you guys acquired Darren Williams?
Same year, yep.
And I think the Knicks saw that, and I think that had something to do with it. But I don't want to relive that. That's depressing.
Darren Williams. Oh, boy. All right. Anyway, Jordan Ronan, $5. Thank you very much. Both of you said last year that DJ was a little overhyped and could set him up for too high expectations in 2020. I think we're seeing that now. Well, that's kind of why I made a video about it before the year started, like a month before, about Daniel Jones' split stats against good defenses and bad defenses, how a majority of his really good numbers were against bad defenses. And I give him credit for it because you're supposed to beat up on bad teams. But you looked at his numbers against the Jets, the Lions, and Washington. It was like a 15-0 touchdown interception ratio. That's not sustainable. You look at the rest of his games, it was not nearly as good. So I expected some regression in a way. Like I did not think he'd go out there and perform the way he did in his high-end games for an entire 16-game season. He played poorly against good defenses last year. And I think, as we've said before, a lot of it has to do with the scheme and all that. I feel like if he was in year 2 of Pat Shurmur, he would be better, but we won't know, of course. But he was a bit overhyped by some fans, and I get it. You want this guy to be the franchise quarterback. You want him to be great right away. We've seen year 2 breakouts from quarterbacks before, but at the same time, you got to look and be a little realistic. We didn't have a great offensive line. It was very young. Our best weapon was Sterling Shepard. We expected Darius Slayton to be a wide receiver 1 after week 1, and Evan Engram, while he's inconsistent, did stay healthy most of the year. I will say that, but he did not have the best weapons either. So he was a bit overhyped. I will say that.
Listen, I'm an emotional fan, so I understand. And there's times where I was drinking the Kool-Aid after they won 4 straight and beat Seattle, and I probably was a little bit too aggressive with that. I'll be the first to say it. So I understand fans that were jumping on the Daniel Jones bandwagon, but a lot of times when that happens, and it's what I worry about with Jones and even with Judge, I don't want people to get too carried away with Judge either, because if you put him up too high on a pedestal, you're only going to set him up for failure. In a way, I almost think it's beneficial that Judge only won 5 games or 6 games in his rookie year. You look at Mangini with the Jets, who won 10 games his rookie year when nobody expected. He was fired 2 years later. I think slow, gradual progression is good. And I think last year when people started saying Danny Dimes after 1 start, and he went out there, he had the miraculous start against the Bucs, and people thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, I think that put too high of expectations on him, and it's only going to set him up for failure, because fans are going to expect him to be this finished product, 12 starts into his career. And it's kind of what happened this year. Mike, if we're being honest, the guy had 12 starts going into this year. He had to learn a brand new scheme. He didn't have a whole preseason to learn any of it. And people expect him to come out and just throw 5 touchdowns like he did against Washington before. The expectations were way too high. People were going in with way too high hopes. And I think it set him up for failure. And I think maybe people become grounded now. And maybe going into next year, they go in with a more realistic approach. And maybe he starts to hit the ground running.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I made my preseason, predictions for Daniel Jones, I had a 5% increase in his numbers. I was not expecting anything crazy. I had him 26 touchdowns, maybe 13 interceptions or something. But it is disappointing to see where he's at right now, but I really do believe he'll benefit from a better situation next year. I don't think Jones will ever be a top 10 quarterback, but he doesn't have to be that. We know that. If you can be a game manager and just make the throws you need to make and rely on Saquon Barkley to be who he is and hopefully stay healthy and have an offensive line play well, then you'll see a lot of good things and it'll translate to wins. And the Giants have a defense that's pretty good. So, they can make that work. It would be nice to have a top 10 quarterback. Only 10 teams have that. We're not going to be one of them probably. So it is what it is. Build around them, find a way to make it work. It's on a rookie contract too, so that's definitely the most beneficial part of the whole thing.
I'm not going to say he can't be a top 10 quarterback, but right now I'm going to say he obviously isn't. I don't think he'll ever be a top 5 quarterback. I think. Yeah. You think Tannehill's a top 10 quarterback?
He's borderline.
I think that's what he could be.
Around there. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what he will be. I think that's what he could be. And Tannehill this year to me is an MVP candidate. He's got he's had some great numbers. Yeah, he's played really well. So I won't definitively say he can't be a top 10 quarterback, but I understand why people don't feel like he can for sure. So far, the way that he's played throughout his career.
Yeah. From Jordan again, Casey Alex Smith is Jones, in my opinion. I've said that on draft night. That's my comparison, honestly. But I think some of his loyal fans think Peyton Manning, Big Ben, etc. I don't see that. They think that he thinks they might turn on him if he is Alex Smith. I would sign up for Alex Smith. Alex Smith is fine. We're not talking 49ers first 5 years of Alex Smith. We're talking KC Alex Smith when the Chiefs were winning 10, 11 games a year. They didn't make any deep playoff runs with Alex Smith, but at the same time, he got them into the playoffs every year. They built a good enough team around him. Having Andy Reid definitely helps. But, who says Joe Judge can't be a really good coach and make Daniel Jones, the best quarterback he can possibly be? I don't know. You got to be realistic about it. I think somewhere from Alex Smith to Ryan Tannehill is a fair comparison. When you start saying Peyton Manning, Big Ben, Eli Manning, that's when I kind of stop listening. It's it's not realistic in my mind.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. And I think that does more harm to Jones than good, because when you set him up to be Peyton Manning or even Eli Manning, the guy won us 2 Super Bowls, the greatest quarterback in our franchise's history, you're setting him up for failure. And I think Tannehill's a fair compare. I think that's a good one. I'd be happy if he turns into Tannehill. Tannehill's a good quarterback. He wins football games. So I try to be fair. A lot of fans get on me because I'm not the guy that's going to say he's going to be Peyton Manning, and I'm also not the guy that's going to completely give up on him. I guess I'm in the middle, but that's my honest opinion. I don't know what he is yet. I honestly don't, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that the team didn't support him properly.
Yeah, that's like the crappiest part about this whole season is that we go a full year and still have no idea who Daniel Jones is. That's like the one downside, honestly. I mean, there have been multiple downsides, but Jason Garrett being one of them. But that contributes to the problem of not knowing who Daniel Jones is after 2 seasons. DJ Smooth again, thank you. We passed on Allen and Herbert for Daniel Jones. I think he means Josh Allen, or was it? Yeah, Josh Allen, the outside linebacker, I guess. But let me ask you this, Chris.
We didn't pass on Herbert. Herbert didn't come out in the draft.
No, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you this right now. Let's say you knew what you know now about Justin Herbert. He comes out, he's going to break all these rookie quarterback records. If you knew that he was going to be this good back in last April, would you have made Daniel Jones a one-and-done quarterback?
Oh, wow.
That's a good question, right? I've heard it before, and I'm like, wow, it's not a bad question at all. Gets you thinking.
The thing is, I think I'm going to say no, Mike, because I don't think Justin Herbert does what he's doing this year on the Giants. Because the Chargers got receivers. They've got Mike Williams. They've got what's his name? They got the other really good
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen. They've got weapons over there. I don't think he would be as successful here. I think the situation has a lot to do with it. So I think I'd lean no, to be honest with you. I think the New York Giants need to fix the rest of this football team. And if we didn't take a tackle there, we would have nothing towards the future of our football team on the offensive line. So my answer would actually be no. If you're telling me no Andrew Thomas, the offensive line is not showing any progression towards the future, and you're putting Herbert in this situation, I don't think Herbert does the same thing with the Giants that he's doing with the Chargers. So I would say no, give me the future left tackle this past draft.
I'm going to try and cheat on this question somehow. I would say yes, I would have taken Herbert if I could make like the same trade the 49ers did where I get Trent Williams for like a 5th-round pick. If I can make like a deal afterwards to fill in left tackle, then like maybe I do it. Because, you know, you only go as far as your quarterback brings you in this league, honestly. And so far, I know he has a better situation, but you'd have to admit that Justin Herbert looks better right now.
Oh, he does.
So,
No, he definitely does.
I mean – yeah, I feel like he has a more positive trajectory for his career going forward. I mean, I hope I'm wrong about that, of course, but I don't know. Justin Herbert's, he makes, 3 to 5 plays a game that just make you go, wow. Like he shows a lot of things that are just like really impressive for a guy that young. And, I mean, look, it sucks we missed out on him.
It's a great hypothetical. And I don't think you could go wrong.
It is, yeah.
Because Herbert definitely looks like he could be easily a top 10 quarterback. So
right.
It's a tough question.
From Esar once again. In 2018, the Browns picked first. I've heard this one before, and I definitely relate to it. The Colts picked third, the Giants picked second, and the Browns are 10-5. Both teams are 10-5. Rebuilding should not take this long. I do agree. The problem is they did not rebuild back in 2018.
That's
and you can
the problem.
Blame Mara, blame Gettleman. I like to blame both, honestly. If they started their rebuild, if the Giants go 10-5 or 10-6 next year, then we'll forget about that. But for right now, it's a bad look because, yes, they drafted next to those teams or should have been. The Jets traded up, of course. They should have been next to the Colts and Browns, and they did the smart things. They built their teams the right way. And for the Colts, it was even harder because they had their franchise quarterback just kind of quit on them in August. I don't want to say quit, but retire in August. So, I mean, they had, their backs against the wall for that one. So, yeah, they're in better positions right now. And remember, the Browns had the 1st and the 5th pick or 1st and 4th pick. They got Denzel Ward as well. So they did have an advantage there. But, yeah, it's kind of like
he's absolutely right. But
they did it better.
But my answer to that is we screwed up. We didn't start rebuilding in 2018 like they did. We started in 2019. And the hope is we're going to look like the Browns in 2021 the way they look this year. That's the hope in the 3rd year of the rebuild. We didn't start it when they should. And I see a lot of people in the chat saying Jones isn't as talented as Herbert. He's not. But my belief is you got to fix the rest of this roster. And I don't think Herbert would have been super successful here with as bad of as our weapons are on offensive line. I'm not saying that it's the wrong decision. Herbert's a really talented quarterback. But I look at Matt Stafford. What the hell did Matt Stafford ever do? Matt Stafford, in my opinion, is one of the 5 or 6 most talented quarterbacks in football since he's been in the sport. Guy never won because they never built him a team. And my mindset is of the Giants right now, they have to take this opportunity to build the rest of this team. That way, whoever they bring in at the quarterback next, if it's not Jones, could be successful, and you could get the most out of his abilities.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say Daniel Jones doesn't work out, right, in 2 years or a year from now, you can say the Giants failed Daniel Jones as much as Daniel Jones failed the Giants, if not more. I mean, the Giants did the guy no favors. I mean, Pat Shurmur was good with quarterbacks, but you get rid of him after a year. You find out he's not head coach material. You bring in Jason Garrett. No weapons, really. Offensive line is young, inexperienced, and sometimes garbage. I mean, you can't expect your quarterback to turn into a superstar with a supporting cast like that. Now, I do think sometimes people go overboard on the excuses for Daniel Jones, and sometimes he does his own bad decisions and doesn't make his own throws. But for the most part, you can't have consistent and sustained success with the team around him. I have to be honest. But hopefully next year, as I said, we'll forget all about that and hopefully get him the team he needs next year to actually start winning games consistently. From Jordan again, if you ask me, I think Fields and Lance could end up being the best QBs from the 2021. Why? Because they're dropping, and if Kyle Shanahan gets either one of them, rest in peace, NFL. That's something I've heard in the past. I think if Trey Lance went to the 49ers, I would buy a lot of stock in the 49ers. I mean, that would be a match made in heaven.
I don't know how I feel about they got 6 wins right now, the 49ers, right?
Do they? 6 or 7? Yeah, they've had a rough year with injuries. But yeah, they're a quarterback away. I think we've known that. I mean, they were one Jimmy Garoppolo pass away from winning a Super Bowl last year, and that's with Jimmy Garoppolo, who is fine. He's not great, but
that's a perfect example. If you get the right team and the right coordinator, Daniel Jones, he could do what Jimmy Garoppolo does. But Kyle Shanahan's a brilliant offensive mind. If you pair him with a really talented quarterback, that's scary.
Yeah, if Trey Lance ever hits his ceiling and has Shanahan, I mean, that is a rip for the NFL. I will say that. Gabriel, why are people forgetting that Jones has had to learn a new system and playbook every year? That would suck balls to have gone through as a new quarterback. Yeah, it happens. I mean, look, Baker Mayfield did it 3 years in a row, basically, different head coaches, new systems, and he ended up really good in year 3. But I think a lot of it has to do with the play caller. Kevin Stefanski's a really good play caller. Once you get the right guy in here, I feel like it might take a month or so, 4 or 5 games to get acclimated. But once you're in that system and you get it, now it's easier in year 2, I get it. But once you're 4 or 5 games in, you'll start to really understand things a lot better. So, I mean, it really goes for how good the play caller is. I know it sucks to change 3 times in 3 years, but it depends how good the play caller is. If you get an elite play caller, doesn't matter. It's Daniel Jones is going to figure it out. Like, if the play caller next year sucks and it's not Jason Garrett, then you're not going to get good either way because the system can only bring you so far. So it really depends how good the system is, in my opinion.
Play caller has a lot to do with it. Play callers are very underrated in the NFL. Everybody always gives credit to the quarterbacks, and people don't ever take into account the surrounding parts, the play callers, the line, there's no position that is more dependent on the other positions on a team than a quarterback. And a play caller has a lot to do with it. And I see Fabian says, you don't blame fumbles, interceptions, misreads, unable to make defenses, the team around you. Stop making excuses for him. Have you been watching the Giants lately? Daniel Jones he's lost 1 fumble since week 5. Hasn't thrown an interception in his last 5 games. So what is there to blame? Doesn't have that problem the last 5 weeks. We're talking about almost half the season. So what games are you watching?
Yeah, I mean, look, if he plays the way he did against the Ravens at a consistent level, we have our guy. I just have to see it more consistently. I'm not going to crown him as franchise quarterback for just a couple performances, but I'm telling you, it's trending in the right direction. And when I saw that play, I bring it up when he rolled out to the left and made that throw to Pettis, I was like, that's what I want. That's what we need. And like, if I see more of that, I'll feel pretty confident going into next year about we have our guy. So I hope we see more of that, honestly. But it's been a rough year overall. When you look back and
absolutely overall,
Jones, you're going to say, okay, he kind of was disappointing, and he definitely did not live up to what we expected. But when you think about the last month of the season, you're like, okay, he definitely trended in the right direction. We have something to work with here. So, I mean, there is positive takeaways from what we saw there. JD, expectations are based on DJ being a 6th overall pick. I mean, if you took him 2nd round, like you mentioned before, there would not be this much criticism about the guy. Let's be real.
I think that's fair. Obviously the fact that he was picked higher is going to raise expectations. There's no doubt about it. And the Giants did overdraft him. I'll be the first to say it. It wasn't a strong quarterback draft class, and the Giants. Listen, I say it all the time. I could look like a genius right now. I could say I was right from the beginning. I hated the pick. It was not the right pick in my opinion. Where they were picking, that doesn't mean he can't turn out to be a good quarterback.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think either of us like the pick. A lot of Giants fans didn't like the pick, but I think for the greater good of the team, we're fine being wrong about that one. I'll do two more questions, then we'll get into our Cowboys predictions going forward. So think about a score prediction, Chris. G-Man Rising again, thank you. I think Mara wanted Jones because he thought he'd sit for 3 years. I did hear this after draft night and it drove me crazy. Behind Eli, I'm not a DG fan, but I think either him or Reese had a say at quarterback. Now, I remember after Jones was drafted, I think Gettleman had that quote, this can be like the KC model or the Green Bay model where Aaron Rodgers sat. And when I heard that Green Bay model thing, I honestly wanted to put a bullet through here. I was like, we're really keeping Eli Manning for 3 more freaking years? I didn't really fully believe it. But when your general manager said something like that, I'm like, can you believe this guy? But of course it was, fake news. It was only 2 games of Eli Manning, then Daniel Jones came in. But when I heard that, I was like, oh my God.
I thought, and I'm a usually like I thought the same thing, but I knew it was nonsense. But I just want to read. Shaw said you missed the super chat, so I'm just going to read it. He says, "I've been blocked by Bobby Skinner as I called him out for saying Danny Dimes after 2 starts last year. Holidays got me drinking. Support both of you. Cheers." Shaw says. So there you go. Well, he's a huge Daniel Jones fan. You know that.
Yeah. Hey, me and Shaw don't see eye to eye all the time, especially about Eli, but I don't block people. Like, I don't know. I don't look, I just don't do it. Like, if we disagree, it's all good. Just don't be an a-hole. That's pretty much all I got to say. And Shaw seems like a good dude, so it's all right. All right, last question here. Michael R. Nice name, Michael. Thoughts on drafting a first-round wide receiver and signing Robinson? So can you see a scenario where they do both? Sign Allen Robinson for the big $18 million per year contract for 4 years or so, and draft a Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle in the first round. What would be your thoughts about that?
I wouldn't rule it out. I would say it's more possible if we sign a guy like Corey Davis. Like if we sign more of a second-tier wide receiver. If we invest that much money in cap in like you're talking $20 million into Allen Robinson, I would think they'd steer away from taking a wide receiver in the first round. But if you get a guy for like 9 or 10 and he's more of your 2 and you want to still get your 1 in the first round, I think that's more. But if you're paying that guy $20 million, I don't think we would take a wide receiver in the first round. I'd be surprised. I still think we'd take a receiver, just not in the first round.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel. Like, I would not hate the idea because I think wide receivers are pretty valuable because, like, when you have playmakers, it kind of opens up your offense a lot. Like, we talk about Stephon Diggs with the Bills. Like, he really opened up that offense and brought it to a different level. So I think receivers can change an offense for sure. You're talking about an Allen Robinson plus a top 3 wide receiver from this draft. That can make some really huge changes.
I'm not going to cry if they do it. I'm not going to cry if they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
My thought process this 2021 offseason, Mike, I want no excuses for Daniel Jones. I don't want to have the mindset I have now because I try to be as fair as I can. The mindset I have now is I don't know. I want to be able to definitively say at 2021, I'm on board or get him the hell out of here. And the only way I'm going to be able to say that is if they fix this offense and they get him some weapons and they actually give him a real opportunity to see if he could be the quarterback. And then worst case scenario, if he's not, you bring in a new guy and he's got a much better situation around him. So if that's what you want to do, you want to sign a top-tier wide receiver and use the first round, have at it. We got to find out what we got in the quarterback if that's what they decide to do. I don't think they do that. If they sign a wide receiver, I think they would go defense in the first round.
Right. And we don't have unlimited cap space, so you have to be smart about where you're spending this money. If you sign a Robinson, you might not be able to draft the great or take or sign like a Shaq Barrett in free agency at outside linebacker or something. So you have to be smart for how you allocate that stuff. All right, one more. I keep saying one more, but Mike Nixon, my 2 favorite YouTubers, your thoughts on signing Michael Gallup. Because I feel like Gallup's he's a free agent next year. I actually checked this out the other day. Next year, after 2021, he's a free agent. Michael Gallup, if he was a free agent this year, it would have been a great low-key signing because he kind of gets overshadowed by CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, but he is actually not that bad. Like I honestly would have been on board for that. It would not have costed $20 million. So I honestly would have been on board with that, to be honest.
I think Michael Gallup would be a perfect fit here. But like Mike super chatted that to me the other day too, and I didn't check it, but I didn't think he was either. I thought it was another year, so it is. He'd be a perfect fit though. He's a good deep ball wide receiver. He'd fit in here well. I don't think he's a 1. If I had to guess, I think he's more of a 1A. But I do think he's a really good wide receiver, and I think he would fit well here. But yeah, he's not a free agent this year.
He's been very good lately too. I'm scared of him Sunday. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, speaking of Sunday, let's get to it, Chris. What do you think is going to happen with the Giants on Sunday against the Dallas Cowboys in a must-win game at home?
Oh man, I want to pick the Giants. I try to be as optimistic as I can. And I'm not. Here's a couple things Giants need to clean up if they have any chance to win this game. One thing we didn't talk about enough. We didn't talk about at all in this, and I get why we didn't. The special team since the bye has been so bad, and every week it's bad. The punt coverage, that needs to be cleaned up dramatically. You cannot lose hidden yardage in this game. We have to come out with an identity with the offensive line. We have to be a balanced attack to have any chance. You have to slow down that Dallas offense. And our defensive line has to show up. I'm not telling you we're going to be able to stop Dallas. They're going to put up their points. They've got their weapons. But our defensive line has to show up like it did against Seattle. If we expect to slow down this Dallas offense at all, because we're not going to be able to cover them for 4 seconds with the corners that we have. They're going to get open. They have very talented wide receivers. So if we're going to win, special teams has to show up. Jones has to play like he did last week. If Jones plays like he did last week, he's going to throw 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. He played really well. We have to have a balanced attack, but in the end, I'm going to pick Dallas. I don't want to. I'm going to go 27-21 Dallas. I got Dallas by about 6. They've been playing really well the last 2 or 3 weeks. They look like a much different team. And we don't. We have not been playing good football the last 3 weeks. And I hope I'm wrong. And maybe in my opinion, like I said, the NFC's changes on a whim. So maybe the Giants will come out, they'll surprise me, and they'll win the football game. I didn't think we were going to beat Seattle. We did. So maybe we'll go out there, we'll beat Dallas. We'll have an opportunity to root on Philadelphia Sunday night, but I'm going to pick Dallas by about 6.
Yeah, I will say I think I'm going to have Dallas winning by a little bit, not as much as 6, maybe like 3 or 4. But I will just say this. I'm happy that I get to spend week 17 watching the Giants on the edge of my seat. That is something I'm thankful for. I know it's a bad division, but I am thankful that's the case. Now, you mentioned the Giants have not played well recently, and I did the math before it. The last 3 games, the Giants have been outscored 73-26. They have no offense. They cannot pressure the quarterback. And if you can't pressure Andy Dalton and give him all the time he wants to sit back there and throw to CeeDee Lamb, Mari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, who we talked about, it's going to be a long day. And you have Isaac Yiadom, a rookie, and Darnay Holmes. We can't duplicate James Bradbury into 3 people. There's one James Bradbury. They can easily avoid him and go to 2 other guys. So it's going to be a long day on defense if they can't get pass rush. How much does Kyler Fackrell help with that? Hopefully a lot. I hope we get like a Leonard Williams game against Seattle here because we need that if we're going to win this game. So it's possible they win. I'm thinking more of 27-24 Dallas. Of course, I hope I'm wrong there, but I just don't see enough from the Giants offense consistently. I don't know how Dallas is with rushing the quarterback this year. I don't think they're that good at it. I mean, guys like DeMarcus Lawrence don't show up unless they play the Giants, so that's the thing. But if they can at least protect Daniel Jones and give him time to throw, Daniel Jones, as you mentioned, if he plays the way he did against the Ravens, I think we'll put up a good amount of points here because Dallas does not have the secondary. I know Baltimore had 2 injuries, but Dallas does not have the secondary that a Baltimore has, and that's a big thing about this game. So if they can run the ball against the worst run defense in football, have Daniel Jones play at a high level, this game's winnable. It really is winnable. So I'm not going to say this is not like the Ravens or Browns game where I gave the Giants virtually no chance of winning. The Giants have a legit chance here. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I'm trying to be accurate. I think it's a 3 or 4 point loss. I can see it going the other way as well. The Giants can play a really good game here and definitely win this one. So I will go 27-24 Dallas, but we've been wrong before, Chris. So that's
well, I hope we're both wrong before. I hope we're both wrong this week. And I agree with you. I definitely am not going into this game. Like if I'm being completely honest, I went into the Baltimore game and I'm like, we're not winning this game. Like we're not. This game, I don't feel that way. I do think we can win. If we're gonna win, Daniel Jones is gonna win it for us. I think Daniel Jones is gonna have to have his best game of the season if the Giants are gonna win this game. Because I don't think our defense, the way they've looked the last 3 weeks, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope the defense shows out and they play great. One of the previous super chats made up a great point. That we've gone up against mobile quarterbacks, and maybe that has something to do with it. I don't think our defense is keeping them in check like we did against Seattle. And if we're going to win, Jones is going to have a 2 or 3 touchdown game minimum, in my opinion, for us to win this game. So that's the way you want to do it, Mike. We want to have faith in Jones going into next year. And if we're going to win a game like this, let Daniel Jones carry us. Let him throw for 323 touchdowns, and we say to ourselves, all right, we feel a little bit better with him going forward into 2021. So if we're going to win, I think Jones is going to win it for us.
Yeah, I told you, I'd rather not go into this offseason hearing questions. Should the Giants draft a quarterback? I don't want to hear that crap every day. Just go ball out, throw me 3 or 4 touchdowns, and win us this game. And we'll see what happens in the playoffs, if there is a playoffs, hopefully. But yeah, that'll do it. Chris, any last thoughts before we wrap up here? I just want to thank everybody for joining us. It was fun. But Chris, you could wrap up for us.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, first off, I want to say thank you for having me on. Always love doing this. Looking forward to having you on next week when hopefully we're talking about a playoff game. If not, we'll be
Yeah.
starting to dive into the offseason and maybe, touching a little broad NFL. Obviously, we'll maybe talk some playoffs. But I had a blast coming on, man. Always love working with you. I think you do a great job over here, even though sometimes you catch a lot of heat on Twitter, I see. But
All the time.
one thing I really like about you is you're never scared to share your opinion, even though we may not always agree on everything. So I definitely respect that. There's a lot of people that I feel like try to cater to what fans want to hear. You're definitely not one of those guys, and I respect that. And I want to say thank you to everybody, that always supports us. All of our best supporters that tunes in. Coming over to my channel next week, we'll be talking about the Giants. Absolutely loved it, Mike. Thank you for having me on, buddy.
Yes, sir. No problem. Yeah, I do get myself into trouble on Twitter, but when you have strong opinions like myself, and sometimes they're not always, positive for the Giants, you run into some people that are not happy. But it is what it is. I do have, strong opinions about stuff. But anyway, let's go Giants. Let's get to the playoffs. Let's go Eagles. Can't believe I'm saying that one, but let's go Eagles. We'll talk to you guys on the Entertainah channel next week. Check us there. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.